it's D-U-E-U. Tell I see you by this point, you're reading my mind. It's time for football. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, man. We about to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah.
And welcome to Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show. I am Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Be sure to follow me on all of my social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram. It's at FBall Game Plan on Twitter, Football Game Plan on Instagram, YouTube.com/Football Game Plan. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, get all that good football video content. Today, I will be joined with special guest Chris James. Follow him at CJ Florida9 on Twitter and also on Instagram. And be sure to go subscribe to Chopping It Up with CJ, those podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, all that good stuff. CJ does a great job breaking down the game of football. And that Chopping It Up with CJ podcast is like 3 different podcasts in one. So he does a lot of great stuff, giving you good fantasy information, against the spread information, and just good overall football content. Chris, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me on.
Well, listen, I had to bring you on, man, because it's been a while. I feel like it's been like a month, so now we got you on. People want to hear the good information, and we'll start with tonight's game between the Broncos and the Browns. Now, Denver is coming in off of a loss, so are the Browns, but the Browns are coming in a little bit beat up in the backfield, at quarterback, at linebacker. They're a beat-up group heading to this game. What's your thoughts on this matchup?
It's a tale of 2 different 3-3 teams, right? So everyone looks at the Denver Broncos like the overachievers. They weren't as good as their record when they started. And the Cleveland Browns are seen as a disappointment. A lot of people picked them to at least make the AFC Championship, if not win the Super Bowl. So you see a tale of 2 different teams. And you start to wonder, is one quarterback kind of overvalued, unfortunately, in his case in Baker Mayfield, and another one underappreciated in Teddy Bridgewater? This is a situation where this dictates what the rest of their season will look like. Both of these teams can make the playoffs. If Cleveland can't win this game by just using the strength of their team and running the ball, probably having to start Case Keenum, then they're probably not going to do anything in the AFC. And the same thing with Denver. They have to get one of these wins where you have a banged-up unit that's not playing well together in Cleveland. And if you heard Von Miller's conversations about what he thinks is going to happen on Thursday night, or tonight, I should say, they're going to get after whoever's starting at quarterback, especially if it's Baker.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, man. I do like the Broncos in this ball game. No Chubb, no Hunt, no chance, in my opinion, for Cleveland to win this one. Next, we have an interesting matchup between Washington and Green Bay. Now, the football team is coming in. Quarterback has been up and down. He goes through spurts within games. Talk about Taylor Heineke, and they're still going to ride with him. But they're facing a Green Bay team that's going to force your offense to maximize its possessions. Does the football team have a chance against the Packers?
I feel like I'm going to be clowned if this doesn't happen, but I actually have an upset here. I feel like in this particular matchup, you have the Packers and Aaron Rodgers coming off a very emotional game against a division rival. They're feeling good and riding high. And as bad as that Washington football team defense has been, those 4 first rounders that they have on the line, I think if they start to kind of get back to their roots, pin their ears back a little bit, play zone coverage, and don't let Aaron Rodgers be able to get the big play. And I have him winning a close, sneaky one.
This is going to be an interesting game. Again, the defense does match up well versus that Packers offense. And if the football team's offense can catch some fire, then maybe, like you said, maybe there's a chance for them to pull off this upset. We shall see. The next game we're going to talk about involves a team that's, we know this is a good football team. We're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, and they're taking on the Tennessee Titans team that is coming off of an outstanding victory against the Buffalo Bills. Now, when you look at this matchup, who is more in danger? Tennessee's defense or Kansas City's offense with how inconsistent they've been? I feel like this is a get-right game for someone.
Absolutely, and if you watch the game on Monday night, you understand that the unit that's most vulnerable is the Tennessee defense. They lost yet another corner in Caleb Fairley, their first-round pick this year. Christian Fulton might not play in this game. So all you have is Jack Rabbit Jenkins, and I mean, he's played well when asked to do what he does well, be physical at the line of scrimmage, especially if he's playing in the nickel position. So I think that this is a Kansas City game. I think Kansas City gets the job done in what should be a pretty high-scoring affair.
You know, it's interesting because I look at this from the other side of it. What Tennessee's strength is offensively, you know, they're big. They're big at wide receiver. They're big up front, and they are definitely big in the backfield. And running the football against this Kansas City defense could prove to be successful if Kansas City can't stop the run. If they allow Tennessee to win on these early downs, it could be a problem, man. I see this one looking a lot like that AFC title game looked a few years ago where Tennessee had them on the ropes, but Kansas City stormed back. So I do like Kansas City to win this ball game, but this one could be another one that we see end up in overtime because I expect Tennessee to take the air out of the football and try to shrink this ball game. But again, you never know with the Titans defense, but you brought up a great point about that secondary. They're down to maybe their third or fourth corner opposite of Jackrabbit. So we'll see how they do. And lastly, before we hit a commercial break, we have a game between the Atlanta Falcons and the Miami Dolphins. Now, I feel like I've seen this game already. I feel like both teams are very similar in some aspects. And I also feel like they're just right there about to break through, but something's holding them back. What's your take on this one?
This is a really odd game for me because we saw Tua come in and play better than people have been giving him credit for playing over there in London. I think he's a little more comfortable. I think this Miami team is a little more talented than they've been showing so far. They've just been inconsistent in a lot of ways. And this Atlanta team, even though they have their own talent in their own right, I don't know if I trust the way that they kind of gel together. They don't seem like a team that can be consistent when you need them to be. I actually like Miami to kind of get out of a funk and come out with a W in this one. Allow Tua to throw the ball down the field a little bit more and take advantage of Jalen Waddle being just one of the fastest humans on the planet.
You know what's interesting about Miami and watching these guys play? I feel like they're way better than their record. You look at their record, you see 1-5. You're just like, wow, they're 1-5. I could have recalled them winning a couple of games, but here they are, and your record says what you are. But you're right. This is a team that just looks like they gel better in their own right. Atlanta has splash plays. They have good talent, but for whatever reason, they can't get it consistently to be on the same page out there on the field for 60 minutes. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out on Sunday because Miami definitely needs a win. There's nothing like a team that's desperate, back against the wall, all those football cliches to come out swinging. So we'll see Tua probably play even better in his second game back from that rib injury. So we'll step aside and take a quick commercial break and be back with more Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show here on the Game Plus Network. And welcome back to Football Game Plan's NFL All-32 show. Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, joined here today with Chris James at CJ Florida 9, chopping it up with CJ Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Download it, subscribe, stream it. CJ does an excellent job giving you fantasy advice, against the spread advice, and just good old-fashioned football advice. So we're back talking about Week 7 in the NFL season. And, Chris, we're here in New England with the Jets and the Patriots. I feel like it's going to be built up as the rookie quarterbacks, but this game to me is about which team can stop one another. I feel like whoever steps up defensively has the shot. What do you think?
Same thing here. I mean, when you look at each position, just leave the rookie quarterbacks and leave the coaches out of this, right? Where is New England worse than the Jets? Real question. I mean, the Jets were supposed to have a great offensive line or an improved offensive line. Injuries and mediocre players got in the way of that. Again, I'm just asking a real question. At no point in time do I think that the Jets have a better unit than what the Patriots are offering. So it just becomes, I think the Patriots can score more points than the Jets can put up on the board.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what type of progress we're going to see from this Jets offense coming off of a bye week. And I think that's going to help mellow out Zach Wilson. And if we go quarterback for quarterback, right now everyone thinks Mac Jones is playing phenomenal football, right? What's your take on Mac Jones and how he's playing right now as a rookie?
We discussed this, I believe, early before the season started. I said Mac Jones would be the most NFL-ready quarterback because his whole game is being ready, right? He's not as talented as some of the other guys. He's worked in a system where he had to work to be better than guys who were more talented than him. So he was going to come out and play the way that the Patriots wanted him to and the way that he has played, which is pretty good, especially for a rookie. But I haven't seen him do anything special. I've seen him do the job. When things have been off schedule, I haven't seen Mac Jones make plays happen yet. And if I've missed one, please send me the clip. The other guy, he's too off schedule right now. He's not doing the job because he wasn't prepared, whether it's him or the coaching staff, to actually just take what's given to you instead of just going out and making mistakes. So as far as Mac Jones is concerned, again, I expected him to be NFL ready, but he's going to get lapped pretty soon by the rest of the field in this quarterback class.
Nice play on words right there. Let's travel down I-95 and look at two quarterbacks that are not rookies, but they are very similar in Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones as the Panthers travel to the Meadowlands to take on the Giants. Interesting game here for both teams. I feel like this is a fork in the road game, crossroads game. Both can look at their schedule and say, man, we could have won this one, we could have won that one if a few plays broke our way. So this is a real good game for each team trying to figure out who we actually are. What's your take on this matchup between these two NFC squads?
So even though this is a meaningful game to both, I think for one team, it's literally the end of the road for them if they don't get the W here. So we'll start with the Panthers, the one who should need this and should win this. You know, they have a more talented roster. I think they have a better coach at this point. And the quarterback, oddly enough, I think they have the worst of the two quarterbacks considering how they played this year. And then you look at the Giants. If the Giants can't get a win against a team that's kind of been reeling, they've been punched in the nose a little bit, their season's done. I mean, I looked at parts of that game last week, and it didn't seem like they really gelled with each other anymore. It's kind of like there's a level of frustration that's coming. And if they don't get this going, a lot of heads will roll. And it's going to be from the GM down to the head coach, down to even the quarterback, who, again, has played better than he had in the past. It's just unfortunate how things have gone this season. So I have the Panthers covering this particular situation.
Yeah, it's very tough because you look at the potential of the Giants when everyone is out there on the field, and you're like, well, okay, I see some pathways of success. But when everyone starts to get injured, it's just like, this team is ineffective. And you're right. If they lose this game, it could be curtains. This should be probably the best game of the day. And I'm surprised it's in the 1 o'clock window. And that's Cincinnati taking on Baltimore, the top two teams in the AFC North. Excited to see this one because I like the Bengals makeup. I like what they do offensively. I like what they do on defense. They actually match up well against that Ravens secondary. That passing game of Cincinnati against that Ravens secondary is the matchup to watch. What's your key matchup in this game and how you think it's going to play out?
Yeah, I love this game on the slate. For those who followed any of my stuff, these are two of my favorite quarterbacks in the league. I think they get the job done on a consistent basis, both guys, especially the superhero that is with Lamar Jackson. I love this matchup because it's strength versus strength / strength versus weakness. And what I mean by that is the following. There's no reason for a banged up secondary in Baltimore to be able to cover the Cincinnati receiving corps. But somehow that's still the strength of their team, even with all the injuries. And then you look at the vice versa. Though the Bengals, they improved their pass rush and not their run defense, I think they've held up really well against the run. It's supposed to be a negative, but they've done a good job. I think this is going to be one of those back and forth affairs, a 24-21 type game where I'll take the better kicker in this particular situation with a late game 55-plus yard kick, getting the Ravens a 24-21 victory.
I'm surprised they didn't flex this game to Sunday night. We need Lamar Jackson in prime time and the public school Ravens in prime time every week of the season. They are must-see TV. All right, let's go out west of Vegas, where the Raiders welcome in the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts takes his show on the road, but it's really about Nick Sirianni and what type of game he can call for the young quarterback. What's your take on this matchup and your thoughts on the play calling so far for Philadelphia?
Some discussion's been had over this, and here's the point that I've seen. I don't think they're calling bad plays. I think they have no plan of action with calling them. It's almost like they're just calling plays to call them.
Right.
And that's not a slight against his intelligence. We have to remember, he's a rookie. I don't know, a rookie head coach. I don't know if he's really called plays in the past and has really gotten game script down. I think last week was kind of a slap in the face. They played two completely disjointed halves of football. One was oddly coached in the first half. And then they mixed it up and looked much better in the second half. If they take that game plan out to the West Coast, I think that they can get the W in this game because I'm going to trust Jalen Hurts a little bit more in pressure situations than Derek Carr. And that's no slight at Derek Carr, even though it sounds like one at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch that one. And lastly, before we step aside once again, Detroit taking on the Rams. Now, word came out, they already just reading the tea leaves that they already frustrated with Jared Goff. And I wonder if they feel as though they got a lemon. Well, we know what they bought when they made that move. But what's your take on this game and the Detroit Lions quarterback situation?
So in this game, this should be a fairly easy one if the Rams allow it to be an easy one. Don't try to do anything too flashy. Don't try to prove points. Don't try to make Matt Stafford look like this great quarterback because mistakes, injuries, just play a normal game. You should get this W. For the Lions, it's an unfortunate circumstance that could benefit them greatly. You know, they got quite a bit back in the trade of Matt Stafford for Goff. If this is a team that doesn't think Goff's going to be the guy, you're going to be picking in the top 3, if not number 1. So we got to test out a guy that had some talent coming out. It doesn't look like it's working out. And if he does flip the switch and turns back into a guy that was a pretty above average NFL quarterback, he was not awful early in his career. With Sean McVay, they could have a serviceable bridge quarterback to allow that quarterback they draft to kind of acclimate to the league. So it's a blessing in disguise for Detroit, more than they would like to allow right now because every team wants to win.
I'm here for the Jared Goff revenge game and the Matt Stafford revenge game. It's revenge game season, Chris. So we'll step aside one more time and be back with more football game plans, NFL All-32. And welcome back to Football Game Plans NFL All-32 show. Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Back once again with Chris James at CJ Florida 9, chopping it up with CJ Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Download, stream, listen to it, share it, tell all your friends. CJ does a great job talking football fantasy against the spread and just good all around gridiron action. CJ, let's look at Houston traveling to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. And the Cardinals are the lone undefeated team in the NFL. They're facing a Houston team that brings in a professional quarterback in Davis Mills.
And no, folks, I'm not wearing this color shirt because I'm supporting the Cardinals, although I did tweet. Can we just admit that they're the best team in the NFL? Like, they just are. The record isn't the only reason, but oh my goodness. Poor Davis Mills. I actually feel bad for him and the organization because he's trying, right? It's just he's not there. He's not ready to be in this position. Maybe he never will be, but that's to be seen. Tyrod needs to get back quickly. And on the Arizona side, what can they not do? Someone said they don't defend the run well, and I was like, well, did you watch last week? Because I don't know what they do poorly. The thing they do poorly is they try too hard and make some turnovers happen via Kyler Murray, but they go, okay. They're like the old school Chiefs, oddly enough to say. We'll get it back. We'll do something. So this is probably going to be an ugly game, one that you should probably still bet on the spread. I think it's 17 plus right now. It's going to get ugly before it gets pretty.
And I want to see how a team like the Cardinals, who's so much better across the board, D-line, O-line, receivers, quarterback, running back, corner, safety, than the Houston Texans, how they go out and handle a game in which they are that big of a favorite, 17.5. That's almost like 40 points in college football, right? And also just from a depth charts perspective, they are just so much better than Houston. How they go out and handle this team. Do we get it over early? Do allow Houston to hang around? So this is a fascinating game, in my opinion. What's also fascinating is the next game we're going to talk about between Chicago and Tampa Bay. Now, in Chicago, I thought they had an opportunity to beat Green Bay last week, and they really started getting into gear offensively, maybe in the second, third quarter. Also defensively in the third quarter, and just fell apart in the fourth quarter. That last drive where they needed to stop, they couldn't get one. I think they pose a challenge to this Bucs defense. Guys, we know how the mobile quarterback handles, a defense that's aggressive, that wants to get after it. It changes the dynamic. Well, what's your thoughts on this, and how do you see this one playing out?
I completely agree with what you're saying, especially if they allow for plays to happen downfield. So Tampa has probably the best run defense, but they have a traditional run defense, meaning if you have a traditional, more pocket-oriented quarterback, they'll just stack up against the run. But we saw in the second half against the Eagles, using that misdirection, the opportunity for a quarterback to be a threat makes running lanes a little bigger. And also, that receiving core, quiet as kept. As much as we wanted to say that Tampa Bay's secondary started to look better, Darnell Mooney and Allen Robinson pose a real threat. And Justin Fields' best quality as a passer is throwing an excellent deep ball. So if they allow him to go over the top, it'll put some stress onto this Tampa Bay unit. And keep in mind, that front seven for the Bears is no joke. They're just not. So if they put some pressure on Tampa, I think this can end up being an upset special. Not picking it, but this will be closer than a lot of people think.
Yeah, I think this could be closer than definitely a lot of people think. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead on and pick the upset. I'm going to take the Bears to knock off Tampa. And the biggest key here is I trust Nagy calling plays more so than Sirianni last week. There was an opportunity for Philadelphia to beat Tampa. I think we'll see, Chicago take advantage of that because Nagy is a much more experienced play caller. So I like the upset here because of the +1. This would be the landmark victory for Justin Fields. Now, speaking of landmark victories for young quarterbacks, we don't know if Trey Lance is going to get one in this one against Indianapolis because you may see Jimmy Garoppolo start. The words coming out of San Francisco is the fact that he's trending toward that direction. But they face an Indianapolis team whose offense, to be completely honest, going back to that Ravens game and what we saw last week, they're looking like they are starting to click and hit their stride. How do you figure this one out between the Colts and the 49ers who are coming off of a bye week?
Oh, great question. I wanted to finish up with the last game. NFL stopped deciding games with this taunting thing. Stop deciding games. Make some adjustments on that.
That was a dumb flag, though. Yeah. Straight up.
Definitely was. I love this matchup. They're not mirror image teams in what they do from a schematic standpoint, but I think they're mirror image teams from what they want to do to you. They want to run the ball. They want to be multiple on the offensive side. On the defensive side, they want to funnel things in and then get up the field and make you feel terror. It's a very interesting matchup that I think will be decided by the quarterback position. If the good Carson Wentz comes out, the Colts will win. If the bad Carson Wentz comes out, the Colts will lose. And it doesn't really matter to me who San Francisco 49ers have at quarterback because it'll be determined by the turnover battle in this particular one. I'm actually going with San Francisco, even with Trey Lance if he does start, because I just trust in what I've seen over the last couple of years in Wentz. He doesn't stay up for long, no matter what people want to think. He's going to have to prove it wrong or my position wrong because he's proven it right far too often.
The one guy I'm happy to see out there on the field producing consistently, knock on wood, has been Paris Campbell. It's been good to see him finally healthy out there on the field, making plays in the passing game, becoming that deep threat. We'll see if that can continue. And lastly, we have the New Orleans Saints, who I feel like hadn't played in forever, are taking on Seattle in Seattle. So the Saints are coming off of a bye. They're taking on the Seahawks team on a short week not a short week, but yeah, I guess it depends on if you want to, look at the time when the game ended and went into overtime. But they played Sunday night. And this is going to be a good game because we're going to see some Saints come back healthy and be able to play in this game against the Seahawks. What's your take? So
I think it's the Monday night game, and some people, especially those who are fantasy football people, is Michael Thomas going to be back? Signs point to no. I think this will be a good close game because what we've seen from Sean Payton this year with Jameis Winston, and I don't personally believe in it, is he wants to keep things very inside the vest, muted. And I think this is a matchup where they're going out on the road in a game they're supposed to win. He's going to say, we'll just keep it close and we can win this game. So, and quiet as kept, Geno Smith is not what people say he is. He's not a bad NFL quarterback. He is an excellent backup quarterback. And he's even a competent spot starter at this point. It's always been maturity, not his actual play. So I expect a really close matchup in this one. I expect a more defensive-oriented game than it probably should be. And you'll probably see a final score similar to what we saw on Sunday night last week of 23-20 with the Saints pulling it out because they do have the better roster right now.
And they're getting healthy on the defensive side of football should help them push them over the edge coming off that bye. Chris, Thank you again, as always. Follow this man on Twitter at CJFlorida9, on Instagram at CJFlorida9, and subscribe to Chopping Up with CJ podcast wherever you get your podcast. Stream it, download it, share it with a friend. Chris does an excellent job, and we will see you guys next week as we get ready to kick off Week 7 tonight with Tampa. I'm sorry, that was last week, with Denver and the Browns. We'll see you guys next week.
About to keep this thing moving. I'm about it, you're with it, let's do it. We gon' make this thing official, you heard me? If you're the best, then let's prove it. The goal is set to have a team become a unit, yeah.